The sound of the front door clicking shut echoed down the hallway like a final verdict. I was already in the living room, still in my work clothes, tie loosened, jacket thrown carelessly over the arm of the couch. My hand was wrapped around a sweating glass of bourbon, untouched. The ice had melted. So had I. Rachel walked in like she owned the place, like nothing in the world could touch her. She didn't even look at me at first, just dropped her keys in the dish near the entrance, kicked off those overpriced nude heels she only wore when she was meeting clients, and walked into the kitchen. "Hey," she said, nonchalant, like she wasn't 3 hours late and hadn't ignored my texts. I didn't respond. Just watched her pour herself a glass of white wine like she deserved it, like she earned it. She turned and finally looked at me, eyebrows slightly raised, a half-smirk forming on her lips. "What?" she asked, like I was the unreasonable one for being silent. I said, "You smell like someone else." She tilted her head, played with a strand of her chestnut hair, that same old routine. "It's probably just the bar. It was packed." I nodded slowly, eyes on her. She had a red mark just under her jawline. Not obvious unless you knew where to look. I knew. I knew every inch of her skin. Every freckle. That wasn't one of them. There was a pause, heavy thick. "You know, Matt," she said, moving closer with that glass in hand, her tone syrupy and poisonous, "you've been so tense lately. Maybe you should go out. Blow off steam. You used to be fun." Fun. That word again. Like it was some kind of excuse for betrayal. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. I just reached under the coffee table and pulled out the manila envelope I'd been sitting on for 3 days. The papers inside were heavy with meaning, thick with all the hours I spent convincing myself that I deserved better than to be lied to by the person who once promised she'd never hurt me. I handed them to her without a word. She didn't open them. Just stared at me like I'd spat in her drink. "You're not serious." I was. God help me, I was so serious I could barely breathe. The look on her face changed then. Something slipped, some mask fell. And for the first time in months, maybe longer, I saw her. Not the woman I married. Not the woman I fought for. Just the cold, calculating thing wearing her skin. "You're really going to throw this all away over nothing?" "Nothing?" I said. My voice was low. "Steady. You let a man sneak out the guest room window like a goddamn teenager." She didn't even blink. Just took a sip of wine. That was when I knew, truly knew, she was gone. Had been for a while. And I'd been loving a ghost in her shape. She said, "It's just harmless fun." I said, "Yeah, being single will be fun too." She laughed. Laughed right in my face. Until she saw the signature on the bottom of those papers. Her smile cracked. She stared at the papers like they were written in a language she didn't understand. Her eyes flicked across the page, and I watched her lips move slightly as she read the words: irreconcilable differences, dissolution of marriage, division of assets. Her wine glass hung forgotten in her hand, sloshing gently every time her fingers twitched. Then she looked at me. Not with regret. Not with fear. But with disgust. "You're actually serious," she said flatly. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She scoffed. "You really think I'm the villain here? Because I went out and had a little fun while you were too busy being boring and predictable? You think you're the only one allowed to want something more?" That's when it hit me, not just that she'd done this, but that she meant it. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even ashamed. She genuinely believed she was entitled to it. I stood up slowly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't curse. I didn't break anything. I just looked at her the way you'd look at a stranger who just bumped into you and didn't say sorry. "You lied to my face, Rachel. For months. You turned our house into a stage and made me the punchline." She rolled her eyes and finally put down the wine. "Oh, please. Don't act like you're some innocent. You haven't touched me in weeks. You think I didn't notice? You check out of a marriage and then throw a fit when I get attention somewhere else." "No," I said, "I checked out because you were already gone." She went quiet for half a second. Just long enough to make me wonder if the mask would slip again. If I'd see the version of her I married even for a moment. But no. She turned, walked to the sink, dumped her wine, and muttered, "Whatever. Maybe this is for the best." She said it like she was throwing out an old shirt. Maybe that was what I'd become to her: old, boring, faded. Replaceable. She didn't ask to talk. Didn't ask to fix it. Didn't even argue. Just stood there like I was the one who broke something sacred. "I'll have my lawyer call yours," she added, reaching for her phone. "Assuming you didn't go cheap on that too." I laughed then. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly her, smug, spiteful, and so goddamn small inside. "You'll get your call," I said. "And Rachel." She looked up. "Don't forget to tell Jake what you're worth when you're not lying through your teeth." She didn't reply. Just turned her back to me like that would make it sting less. I went upstairs that night and slept in the guest room, the same one he climbed out of. I laid there, staring at the ceiling, trying to feel angry, sad, anything. But I just felt clean. Like the rot had been cut out. The next morning felt like the aftermath of a tornado that no one else saw. Rachel was already gone when I woke up, probably left early to avoid facing anything resembling accountability. She didn't leave a note, didn't text. Just vanished. Like a ghost. The same way she used to disappear emotionally mid-conversation months before I caught on. I sat on the edge of the guest bed, the one with the rumpled sheets and memories I never wanted. My chest was tight, but my mind was clear. Too clear. Like a switch had flipped. Like everything that used to confuse me finally made sense. The missed calls. The Friday night client dinners that ran past midnight. The suddenly deleted messages. The shower she always took the second she got home, claiming she just felt gross from the gym. I went downstairs, fed Milo, made black coffee, and stared at my phone. 2 missed calls from my sister, Julie. She knew something was up. She always did. I hadn't told her anything yet, but she could read me like a damn billboard. I texted her. You were right. It's over. A minute later, she called. I didn't pick up. I spent that day moving through the house like a visitor in someone else's life. Her shoes by the door. Her makeup on the bathroom counter. That framed photo of us in Charleston, the one where I'm kissing her forehead and she's smiling like she hadn't already started lying to me. I took it down. Around noon, her tone changed. She started texting, not apologizing, not explaining, just testing the waters. Rachel? Can we talk later? I think we both need to breathe. Then, 20 minutes later. This doesn't have to be messy, Matt. We can be adults about it. I didn't respond. A few hours passed and I got the real message she wanted to send. Rachel? You're seriously making a fool of yourself. Jake and I weren't even serious. It was just fun. You're throwing everything away over nothing. There it was again. Fun. To her, fun justified anything. Fun was a loophole in morality. Fun was permission. I closed the messages and opened the email from my lawyer. He needed confirmation on the revised filing, especially after what I told him about her visitor. I replied with 2 words. Proceed immediately. Later that evening, she came home. She looked like she'd been crying, red around the eyes, blotchy cheeks, hair in a loose bun like she was trying to look humble. I didn't buy it. She walked in slowly, as if afraid she'd find me packing. I wasn't packing. Not yet. She sat on the edge of the couch, silent for once. I didn't join her. Just stood by the kitchen island, arms folded. Finally, she said, I didn't plan for this to happen. I said nothing. It got complicated. Jake was just a distraction, Matt. He doesn't mean anything. I let the silence stretch. I wanted her to hear the absence of forgiveness. The void she'd carved with her games. I miss us, she added. You miss control, I corrected. She looked up, startled. You don't miss me, Rachel. You miss me playing along. You miss me being too blind to notice the lipstick on your collar that wasn't your shade. The hotel charges that didn't match your story. The late nights with no receipts. Her face hardened. You went through my stuff? No. You left it all in plain sight. That silenced her. I turned to leave the room, and just as I reached the stairs, she called out, You're overreacting. I paused halfway up. You broke the vow. Not the vase. You don't get to call this an overreaction. That night was the first time in weeks the house was completely quiet. Not fake quiet, not the kind where she'd be in the other room on her phone pretending to scroll while waiting for a text from him. No music. No wine glasses clinking. No fabricated laughter bouncing off the walls like a sitcom she was performing for herself. Just silence. It was almost peaceful. I sat alone in the backyard, beer in hand, hoodie pulled over my head. Milo curled up next to me like he knew something had shifted. Dogs always know. They don't need explanations, just energy. And Rachel's have been toxic for months. I scrolled through my old photos, ones I hadn't looked at in forever. There she was, back when her smile reached her eyes. Us on the beach. At her cousin's wedding. Her in my flannel shirt, barefoot in the kitchen, hair still wet from a shower before she started showering for someone else. I didn't cry. But I wanted to. Not for her. For the man I used to be, the man who believed her. Who would have gone to hell and back for her without asking why. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the occasional creak of the floorboards as Rachel paced in the hallway like a ghost who'd lost her purpose. I heard her pause outside the guest room once, maybe debating whether to knock. She didn't. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of her on the phone in the kitchen. I recognized her customer service voice, sweet, practiced, detached. She was talking to someone about needing time and things being complicated. My stomach flipped. Jake. She wasn't even pretending anymore. Just jumping ship before this one even sank. She hung up when she saw me enter. No apology. No guilt. Just, you want coffee? Like it was any other morning. Like the poison in her mouth didn't taste like betrayal. No, I said. Just want you to leave? She raised an eyebrow, her expression sharpening. Excuse me. You heard me. Her arms crossed, the mug still in one hand. I'm not going anywhere. This is my house too. I nodded slowly. Then pack up what's yours. Because everything else in this house is built on lies and you can take those with you. She scoffed. Oh, please. What, you're the noble victim now? I stepped closer and for once I saw her flinch. I'm not noble, I said. But I'm done being quiet. You brought someone into our home. You let him breathe my air, Rachel. Do you even hear yourself when you talk? She looked away, jaw tight. That was when she dropped the mask completely. You act like I'm the only one who ever got bored, she hissed. You think you're some perfect husband? You're boring, Matt. Predictable. You don't challenge me. You don't excite me. Jake? Jake, I cut in, voice low, is a temporary itch. And when he gets bored of you, when your tricks stop working, you'll be right back here looking for someone to blame. She said nothing. I left her standing there. By the end of the day, she packed 2 suitcases, slammed the front door, and peeled out of the driveway like she was in a movie. But real life has no soundtrack. Just the fading sound of tires, the echo of betrayal, and the slow return of your own voice. She was gone. Not metaphorically, physically. The echo of the door still felt fresh in the air. And I stood there in the hallway staring at the empty space where her keys used to hang. She didn't even leave the house key. Just took her bags, her chargers, her half-used beauty products, and the pieces of herself that never really belonged here in the first place. But her presence lingered. That's the thing no one warns you about. People can leave a place but still haunt it. Her scent was in the sheets. Her voice was in the voicemail greeting we recorded together. Her fingerprints were on the mirror, faint but there. I walked through the house like I was surveying a crime scene. In the living room, her blanket still lay folded over the couch. She used to wrap herself in it every Sunday and make fun of whatever I picked on Netflix. In the bathroom, her drawer was half open. Lipstick caps. A crumpled receipt for sushi. A single, tangled earring that hadn't seen her ear in months. Every corner whispered she was here and she stopped caring long before she left. I took a trash bag and started clearing the ghosts. It wasn't rage. It was something quieter. A kind of sad efficiency. One by one, I erased the traces not out of hate but out of necessity. The weight of pretending she might walk back through that door was heavier than the truth that she wouldn't. Halfway through tossing her things into a cardboard box marked R, I found something wedged under the bed. A journal. I froze. We didn't keep secrets like that, or so I thought. It was leather-bound with a ribbon bookmark and a small pen loop. The kind she always said she'd use and never did. Except this one had been used. I opened it. Just one page. There are days I wonder if he's even awake. He stares right through me. Maybe Jake is a mistake. But it's a mistake that looks at me like I matter. I didn't read more. That line alone was enough to send a crack right through my spine. She didn't just betray me with her body. She rewrote our story in her head to justify it. I closed the journal, dropped it into the box, and duct-taped it shut. An hour later, I called her. She picked up on the second ring. What? Your things are in the garage. You have until Friday to pick them up. After that, I donate everything. Silence. Then, you went through my stuff? No, I said. I went through my house. There's a difference. Another pause. You're being cruel, Matt. I almost laughed. You think this is cruelty? You let another man walk through my bedroom while I was cooking dinner in the same house. This is grace, Rachel. She hung up. I felt lighter. Not good. Not okay. But lighter. Like the gravity had shifted and maybe now I could start walking without dragging her shadow behind me. I opened the windows. Let the cold air rush in. It didn't fix anything. But it was a start. The first Saturday alone was the kind of quiet that stares back at you. I didn't have errands to run. I didn't have Rachel asking me to help her hang a mirror or pick up her dry cleaning or pretend to be interested in her office drama. I didn't even have plans. I just had time and the sound of a house no longer lying to me. The air felt different without her in it. Lighter, colder, honest. I poured myself coffee black just the way I used to drink it before she turned it into some cinnamon almond milk nonsense. I drank it on the back porch with Milo stretched at my feet, watching the fence sway ever so slightly in the breeze. And for a minute I could almost believe things might eventually make sense. Then the knock came. It was Jake. Jake, standing on my porch in a flannel shirt that wasn't his style, looking like he had no idea how to make eye contact with a man he trespassed on. I didn't say a word. Just opened the door and stared. He cleared his throat. Hey. Rachel said you wanted to talk. I blinked slowly. I didn't. Oh. He glanced at his shoes. Well, she said you called her. That you were a. You're standing in my doorway, Jake, I interrupted. Think very carefully about how this conversation ends. He shifted awkwardly. Look, I didn't mean for things to get this far. It just happened. I didn't know she was still a. She was married, I said, calm. Controlled. She was. You knew. He looked up then, and I could tell this guy wasn't evil. Just weak. The kind of man who says yes to anything if it comes with a pretty smile and low consequences. She told me it was over, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I stepped outside, shut the door behind me, and stood right in front of him. She told me a lot of things, too. Doesn't mean they were true. He nodded slowly, swallowing the shame he'd probably been ignoring for months. She's not your problem anymore, I added. I know. Then don't come back here. He nodded again and backed off like a man who had just realized he was never the main character in the story. As he drove off, I stood at the edge of the porch, arms crossed, heart steady. Not triumphant. Not victorious. Just firm. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about proving a point. This was about boundaries, the kind you rebuild after someone drives through every red light in your soul and crashes straight into your faith. That night, I didn't go to bed thinking about what she did. I went to bed thinking about what I almost lost, my ability to trust my gut. My self-worth. My peace. And in the morning, for the first time in months, I slept in. No texts. No tension. Just me. And it was enough. Sunday came slow and gray. Overcast skies, the kind that press down on your shoulders like an old memory trying to get your attention. I stayed under the blankets longer than usual, not because I was sad, not anymore, but because I didn't owe anyone a reason to get up. By noon, I was finally in the garage. The box with Rachel's name on it was still there, taped shut, untouched. I stared at it for a while. What was left of her in that box? A few sweaters, half-used beauty products, a bottle of overpriced perfume I never liked, and that damn journal. The one that confirmed what I'd already known in my bones. I considered burning it all. Just tossing a match and watching it curl into ash. But I didn't. I just sat on the step, coffee in one hand, that box staring at me like it had something else to say. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. One new voicemail. I didn't answer, but I listened. It was her voice, that tone she used when she was trying to sound calm but forgot how to hide the venom behind it. Hey, Matt. I know you said Friday, but I need a few more days. Things are complicated right now. I'm staying at a friend's. I'll send someone to get the box, okay? I just can't. I can't come back there right now. She was cracking. Not out of guilt, but because she had nowhere else to aim her power. I didn't respond. I just deleted the message and went back inside. She could send whoever she wanted. It didn't matter. This wasn't her house anymore. This wasn't her life anymore. But I couldn't lie to myself either. There were still traces. Still landmines. Still memories waiting to ambush me in the ordinary. Like the Spotify playlist I accidentally queued while cleaning. Track 3? Our song. The one we danced to in the kitchen the night we moved in. I froze when it started. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Just stood there, dish soap in my hands, paralyzed by the sound of her humming it off-key, barefoot on the tiles, wine in her hand and her eyes on mine. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. Then I hit next. The silence after was worse than the music. I sat on the floor and let it pass, the grief, the weight, the disorientation of realizing someone you gave your life to had no intention of protecting it. Then I stood up, wiped my hands, and kept cleaning. Because that's what you do when the storm passes. You don't pretend it didn't wreck you. You just start clearing the debris. That night, I sat on the porch again. Milo at my side. The air smelled like rain. And for the first time, I said it out loud. She's gone. And I'm still here. It didn't feel like triumph. But it felt like truth. Monday brought an unexpected email. Subject line, just one more conversation? It was from Rachel. Not her personal email, her work one. Like she thought if she sent it from a professional address, it might land softer. Like this was a business dispute and not the emotional equivalent of a hit and run. I clicked it. Didn't even hesitate. Matt, I know things are messy. I know you're angry. But I also know we had something real once. You can't pretend it was all fake. Can we just sit down and talk? I feel like there are things you don't understand. Things I didn't know how to say. One coffee. That's all I'm asking. The audacity was almost impressive. She wanted coffee? After gutting me emotionally, lying for months, sneaking someone else into her home? Coffee? I didn't respond. But it stuck with me the entire day. Not because I considered saying yes, but because the wording felt so perfectly calculated. Things you don't understand. Translation: I need to rewrite history before you let go completely. It was about control. About narrative. About keeping one last thread tied to my neck in case she ever felt lonely enough to tug it. But I was done. Later that afternoon, I visited my sister Julie. She knew everything now. I had finally told her the whole story over the phone the day before. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't have to. She just made tea, cleared the kitchen table, and listened. "You look lighter," she said as she handed me the mug. I nodded. "I am. But it still burns." "Of course it does," she said. "You're not numb, you're healing." Big difference. We talked for hours. About Rachel. About all the red flags I'd missed. About how love makes you stupid when you give it to the wrong person and believe it's safe. At one point, Julie asked me, "What would you have done if you'd never caught her?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared out the window, thinking about all the alternate timelines. All the versions of me still bringing her coffee in bed while she texted Jake under the covers. Finally, I said, "I think I would have died slowly. From the inside." Not knowing why. Julie reached over and squeezed my hand. Then this? This was mercy. Even if it didn't feel like it. And she was right. Sometimes the truth isn't the wound. The lie is. When I got home that evening, I found another message from Rachel. Shorter this time. "If you won't meet, at least tell me what you want me to say." I didn't reply. Because she still didn't get it. It wasn't about what she said. It was about everything she did when she thought I wasn't watching. Thursday night, I got a knock at the door. Not loud. Just enough to be deliberate. I opened it expecting maybe Julie, or a package, or no one at all. But it was her. Rachel. Hair pulled back, barely any makeup, wearing a hoodie that used to be mine. No suitcase. No dramatic speech. Just standing there like she hadn't shattered something irreplaceable. I didn't speak. She looked down at the welcome mat, then up at me. "I know I shouldn't have come." I said nothing. She shifted her weight. I needed to see you. I wanted to see if you're okay." I almost laughed. "You don't get to care now." She bit her lip, nodded slowly. "I know. I get that." She didn't ask to come inside. Didn't try to touch me. She just stood there in the doorway of the house she poisoned. "I've been thinking about everything," she said. "About the way I left. About what I said. I wasn't fair. I was cruel. I don't know why I did it the way I did." I leaned against the doorframe. "Yes, you do." She hesitated. "Maybe." I was angry. I felt disconnected. I thought I'd lost you before it even happened. I shook my head. "No. You didn't lose me. You left me. And you dressed it up like a reaction. That landed." She looked away again. "I never thought I'd be that person." I crossed my arms. "You always were. You just got better at hiding it." There was a pause. A long one. "I'm not asking to fix it," she said. "I know I can't. I didn't want it to end like this. With hate." I stared at her for a long moment. "Hate's not the word," I finally said. "Hate would mean I still care enough to burn." She closed her eyes. Winced. Like the words hit harder than I expected. I waited. But she didn't say anything else. Just stood there. Finally, I said, "You should go." She nodded once. Stepped back. "Will you ever talk to me again?" "Not if I'm lucky." Her mouth opened slightly like she wanted to say something else, but whatever it was, she swallowed it. Then she turned and walked down the porch, got into her car, and drove away. No drama. No last-minute tears. Just silence. And it was the cleanest goodbye she'd ever given me. I went back inside, locked the door, and stood there in the foyer, feeling nothing. Not rage. Not pain. Just clarity. The kind that comes after a fire has burned everything to the ground and you realize you're still standing. Alone, yes. But unscorched. Days passed. No more texts. No more emails. No more knocks at the door. Rachel had finally done what she should have done months ago, disappeared. And in her absence, I found something I didn't expect. Stillness. Not the dead kind. The quiet kind. The kind that comes after you've cried out every lie, every excuse, every desperate plea to make something broken whole again. I filled the silence with movement. Rearranged the bedroom. Donated the guest bed. Got new sheets, dark blue, no trace of her perfume. I even replaced the damn coffee maker because I couldn't stand the sound of it bubbling the way it used to when she'd be in the shower humming to herself like nothing was wrong. Milo adjusted too. He slept beside my bed now. Didn't pace the hallway looking for her. Maybe he knew, same as I did, that whatever part of her lived in this house was gone, and maybe it had never been real in the first place. One night, I found myself on the couch around midnight, flipping through photos on my phone. Not to torture myself, I thought maybe I could look at them and feel something clean. A goodbye kind of grief. A respectful nod to the past. But when her face popped up, smiling on some rooftop bar, wine glass in hand, eyes pretending to sparkle, all I felt was embarrassment. Not for what she did, but for what I tolerated. I remembered one of our last dinners out. She'd been scrolling her phone all night, half smiling at her screen while I talked about my job. I remember thinking, she's distracted. But now I know she wasn't distracted. She was done. And I was sitting across from a performance. That realization wrecked me more than any voicemail or lie ever could. It was intentional. I started therapy the following week. Julie had recommended someone, said he was good at cutting through the noise. In our first session I said, I don't know where to start. He said, start with the first time you felt small. And just like that, everything opened. I told him about Rachel's silences. Her eye rolls. The way she'd mock my music or talk over me at dinners with friends. How I'd stop bringing things up just to keep the peace. How slowly, over time, I started adjusting myself to avoid conflict until I didn't even recognize who I was anymore. He said, that's not a relationship. That's erasure. That word stuck with me. Erasure. I'd been vanishing by inches. And now, for the first time, I was starting to come back. I left that session lighter. Still bruised, but breathing in a new way. It wasn't healing yet, but it was the start of something better. And better was enough. I was 6 weeks out from the day she walked out with 2 suitcases and not a trace of shame. 6 weeks since the last lie, the last deflection, the last time I let someone stand in front of me pretending to be something they weren't. And for the first time in maybe a year, I didn't feel like I owed anyone anything. The papers were filed. My lawyer confirmed everything was moving quickly, cleanly, no contest, no negotiation. Rachel didn't fight it. She didn't even flinch when it became real. She just signed her name like she was approving a refund. But the thing about finality is, it changes your vision. Suddenly, you see everything with terrifying clarity. The way she'd sigh when I walked in the room. The sudden switch in her tone when I brought up the future. The emotional distance she kept disguised as sarcasm. All the times she made me feel like the burden while she was stacking betrayals behind my back. It was surgical. And I had let it happen because I confused loyalty with love. I stayed because I believed people deserve patience. I believed that if someone you love is slipping, you hold tighter. But what they don't tell you is if someone wants to fall, holding on just drags you down with them. That week, Julie convinced me to go to a dinner party at her friend's place. Nothing crazy, she said. Just good people, good food. You don't even have to talk if you don't want to. I went. Not because I felt ready, but because I needed to prove to myself that I could walk into a room without her name dragging behind me like a chain. The house was warm. People laughed. Someone handed me a drink, asked about Milo, and no one, not one single person asked, so where's your wife? It hit me harder than I expected. I didn't owe the world an explanation anymore. I didn't have to carry her story with mine. There was a woman there. I didn't catch her name at first. She was quiet, observant, and completely uninterested in small talk. We ended up next to each other on the back deck. I said something about how weird it feels, learning to be alone again. She smiled and said, no, you're not learning to be alone. You're just unlearning codependency. There's a difference. I asked her name. Lena. She didn't ask for mine. Just nodded once and said, whatever you went through, I can see it's behind your eyes. But not in front of them anymore. That's something. We didn't talk much after that. But when I left the party, I found myself smiling in the car. Not because of her, though she was interesting, but because I realized I had survived. I hadn't just made it through a breakup. I had walked out of a burning building I didn't even know was on fire, and I did it with my soul intact. It wasn't victory. It was rebirth. And it was damn well earned. I sat alone that Sunday morning, mug of coffee warming my hands, the dog curled at my feet like he finally trusted the stillness again. The house didn't feel like hers anymore. It didn't even feel like ours. It felt like mine for the first time in a long, long time. There's a certain kind of silence that only comes when all the noise has finally burned itself out. The apologies that never came, the fake laughter, the constant static of doubt, it was all gone. What was left was clarity. Heavy, clean, and unflinching. I opened the final envelope from the lawyer that afternoon. Dissolution of marriage confirmed. That was it. No fanfare. No fireworks. Just 2 sheets of paper that meant I was no longer legally bound to the woman who once promised to guard my heart like it was her own and ended up handing it to someone else like it was a leftover. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just exhaled. I took the journal, the one I had boxed, then unboxed, then read just enough of to know it wasn't worth my time, and I fed it into the fireplace. Page by page, watching her handwriting curl into nothingness. The last one I burned read. He still looks at me like I'm the same girl he married. I wish he knew I'm not. And she was right. She wasn't. She became someone who lied without blinking. Someone who could stand in the wreckage of what we built and call it just fun. Someone who didn't leave because of me, but because of the reflection I held up to her that she couldn't stand. I wasn't her mirror anymore. And I don't want to be. A week later, her friend came by to pick up the box I left in the garage. She didn't say much, just looked embarrassed, muttered something about how Rachel was sorting herself out. I didn't care. That box could have gone to the ocean for all I cared. It was full of things that never belonged here to begin with. Julie and I had dinner that night. She asked how it felt. I said, like I finally stopped bleeding from a wound I couldn't see. I meant it. And if you're reading this, going through your own version of what I did, hear this. You will break. You will question yourself. You will want to go back even when you know you shouldn't. But one day, without realizing it, you'll laugh. You'll hear a song and not feel gutted. You'll make plans for yourself and not imagine them with someone else. And you'll remember who you were before you started shrinking to fit inside someone else's indifference. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. I'm not healed, but I'm whole again. And that's more than enough.